Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. Solar activity is ramping up quickly as we've just had the biggest solar flare from the Earth-facing side of the sun since June 19th. This was a 5.0 M-class flare, you see that right there, followed up by a 3.3 M-class flare, boom shakalaka. That launched a big coronal mass ejection out into space because it was a long duration explosion on the sun, and it appears to be a partial halo coronal mass ejection, meaning that some portion of that is likely to sweep by the Earth, just a flank impact, but that is a heightened possibility in about 3 to 4 days. And well, this is the first of 3 big sunspot groups to rotate to Earth facing. They've been very active for more than 2 weeks now, and they've come back home because originally it was 2 sunspot groups that developed on the Earth facing side of the sun, rotated out of view, started going very active right when they lined up with interstellar object 3I Atlas. Now they've rotated through the far side back to the eastern limb solar coordinate system, and well, they have a 2-week journey now across Earth facing. What's so interesting about this as well, I mentioned 3I Atlas, well, we have Comet A6 Lemmon performing its perihelion on the 8th of November above the ecliptic plane, roughly in line with this angle on the sun. So we're going to have this comet with a very long dazzling tail stretched out behind it at its closest to the sun when we have these sunspot groups effectively in line with it, and they've already been very active. We're seeing that happen right now. We've also had a magnitude 6.1 earthquake and lesser magnitude earthquake swarm occur off the coast of Kamchatka, Russia, so that area is still very active. A magnitude 6.3 earthquake hit Afghanistan earlier, both of them within the past 24 hours. We also have the full supermoon coming up on November 5th. This is the moon at its brightest and closest to Earth, the biggest supermoon of the year at about 356,000 kilometers away from the planet. At its furthest, which will be the next new moon on the 20th November, it'll be out at about 420,000 kilometers. In between that entire time frame, we have some pretty interesting planetary geometry. So we have this full supermoon building up to a new moon with very critical alignment, with Mercury performing an inferior conjunction Cazimi and Uranus as well in that perfect alignment. And what's also happening around the full supermoon? Well, we have the Taurid Meteor Stream, and in fact, it may even be a meteor swarm because we get these meteor swarms to occur at regular intervals based off of the Earth and Taurid Meteor Stream resonance that exists in 2025 and 2026 are the 2 years that we may get a lot of Taurids to come in. We're already seeing them start to fly in bigger fireballs. These are, instead of just dust grain size little things flying around, up to pebble and larger. And there's some people, as it relates to the comet impact hypothesis for the Younger Dryas, suspecting that there are much larger pieces in the Taurid Meteor Stream. It peaks every June and November. Well, we have that reaching a peak around November 4th, 5th, 6th, all the way to the 9th. There's 2 different parts, the southern and the northern. There's just a lot happening energetically. We have Typhoon Kalmegi approaching the Philippines right now, very powerful cyclone. And we also have a large coronal hole on the Earth-facing side of the sun, which has been perfectly linked up with significant earthquake activity, soon to rotate into geo-effective position. So there is a lot that's happening right now. We're at the beginning of a big wave of activity. That is your summary introduction. Now let's get into the details. Here we have our D-region absorption model showing us the impact of those solar flares today. Here we see the beginning of this 5.0 M-class flare over Africa. So basically, big explosion on the sun releasing a lot of light photons. 8.3 minutes later, they hit the Earth, specifically the ionosphere. They get absorbed into the D region, causing a radio blackout. There's that follow-up 3.3 M-class flare. So the whole sequence overall was quite significant. And we see that it really impacted this region of the world here. This is the daylight side. So this was all happening while North America and most of South America was asleep. And I know personally that I slept pretty well, but I kept getting up and going back to bed and getting up and going back to bed. Makes sense when there's a lot of energetic flux in general happening in our solar system and with the Earth. So perhaps you've been feeling that. There are a bunch of video resources I have as it relates to solar activity in your health and wellness, geomagnetic storming, and more. I'll link those in the video description if you haven't watched them. They are older videos, but they are complete breakdown synopsis videos as to the effects of all this potentially on your health, wellness, and more. So check that out. Here we have our X-ray flux as measured by the GOES satellites at 5.6 Earth radii, and we see our overall level of solar activity. We were down in the B class zone, bumped up to C class as these sunspots started to rotate in, even had an M class flare there, but mostly C class activity until today when we had this 5.0 and 3.3 M class flare long duration. This is where we are right now. Here we can see the longer solar cycles at play. So these are each about 11 years in length. This is solar cycle 25. We are getting close to the end of maximum in the beginning of the descending phase. Interesting to note that we had these huge solar storms back late October and even into November of 2023. That was exactly one hail cycle ago, which is a 22-year modulation of solar activity. So interesting that we have these huge sunspots right now that are very active, right exactly one hail cycle later for the sun. Very, very interesting. Now, this is in fact the biggest solar flare that we've had since June 19th. You'll see if I zoom out, there have been some high 4.0 M class flares, like 4.8, 4.6, etc. But we had to go all the way back to a 1.91 X class flare here in June to have a solar flare that's been as strong. So there's our 1.91, and then you'll see all of these right here. Like this is, for example, 4.4. And then another, this is like a 4.6. So we've had some solar flares that are very, very close. This is a 4.8 right there, but this is the biggest solar flare in nearly half a year. So this is quite significant and just the first of likely a lot of explosions on the sun that are going to increase the energetic flux on our planet and likely launch a lot of solar storms our way, meaning that we're going to have geomagnetic storming, lots of big swings in the magnetic field, aurora in the Arctic and Antarctic circles, but also probably pushing down to high mid-latitude areas, perhaps even lower. It really depends on the activity. You get an extreme geomagnetic storm, expect to see aurora go even further south. So that is certainly a heightened probability for the next 2 weeks. And then also you add in the other energetic factors. So we have the full supermoon, we have the Taurid Meteor Stream impact, we have the perihelion of Comet A6 Lemmon in line with these sunspots. All those are kind of like +1 modifiers in my book. So I think we're going to see a pretty big wave of energy wash over the Earth, and just in general, I'm expecting things to be bigger and stronger than weaker and smaller. But the biggest thing I think is this perihelion of A6 Lemmon because of how it lines up with where these sunspot groups will be, and that's going to be Earth facing. Let's check it out. Here we have our 3D solar system viewer as provided by the Sky Live. Link to this in the video description, as well as all the resources that I show in my video always. That is my guarantee for you. So you can check this out yourself, do your own research. I always recommend that. Here we see the sun, we see the Earth, we also see our other planets, Venus, Mercury, Mars. Here's A6 Lemmon, here's 3i Atlas. You notice that it's very closely aligned with the ecliptic plane, and A6 Lemmon is not. It's coming in from below, zoomed above, and then we'll go back below the ecliptic plane, and we see that it's a very long period comet going way out beyond the normal solar system. But this is the 3rd of November. If we go forward here, you'll see that it's going down like this, and on the 8th of November is its perihelion. So we'll zoom in here so you can really see this nicely, and we see that it is at its closest approach to the sun right here. It'll stay close to the sun as it then cuts through the ecliptic plane, but look at the geometry, okay? So here is the Earth, and we're always looking at, with these telescope observations of the sun and everything, we're always looking at straight on. So here's the Earth, there's the sun, there's Lemmon off to the side. It's not a perfect square, it's fairly close to it, but it's not a perfect square. So we see that when we are alignment like this during the perihelion of Lemmon, it's off there. Now we're getting these sunspots to rotate into view from the eastern limb like this. This first one is already kind of like at that vector angle, but the other two are behind it. So during this whole period here, today's the 3rd. Again, let's go back. We have our supermoon on the 5th, right? And then we have the perihelion on the 8th. During that entire period, A6 Lemmon is going to be effectively at its closest approach to the sun. It has this huge, dazzling dust and plasma tail. And so clearly it is very active electromagnetically. It's got a commutopause, it's going to have an ionopause, it's going to have its bow shock, everything. It's super, super active electromagnetically. That tail is a key indicator of that, pumping out a ton of volatiles, dust, gas, and more. So this is the alignment that we have. I think that is likely to work with these sunspot groups that are on the sun in this area, especially the big one that is in the northern hemisphere, and that's 4274. So we're already seeing activity from that. I think we're going to see more, and the other sunspot groups will also likely give us a show in the days ahead. And this is the biggest event that's happened just in the past 24 hours. This huge coronal mass ejection launch off there. Check out that second one that came behind it. First one's from that 5.0 M-class flare. Second one is from that 3.3 M-class flare. Look at the partial halo signature here. So obviously mostly going off to this side, but we do get a push of energy to the side there, signifying that some of that is headed towards Earth. I don't think this is going to be the strongest impact. It's probably just going to be a bit of a heads up as to what is likely to come. But as a result of that, we're probably going to get some sort of flank impact within 3 or 4 days. Now, the other energetic event that's occurring within this time window is the impact of the Taurid Meteor Stream and perhaps even the Taurid Meteor Swarm. So here we see this collection of small meteorites, dust grains, even some pieces that are larger, sweeping by the Earth here. And there's times where we get more than less, because as you can see, you have this meteor stream, but you also have this resonant swarm there that hangs out at a different part of the orbit. And so 2025 is one year where we're expected to hit that note, though we're not expected to hit it exactly in the center. And here's where they're coming in from. So we have the constellation of Taurus, which is why it's called the Taurid Meteor Stream. And we actually have 2 components, the north and the south. So the south one will peak around the 5th, that's what's expected. The north one around the 9th. Here we see the Pleiades, and interesting to note, check this out. Here we see our sky map. We see the constellation of the Bull. This is Taurus, we have Aldebaran there, very bright star, easy to see. Here we have the Pleiades, which are a wonderful star cluster, also quite easy to see in the night sky, though you may need to look at it kind of just off directly, so because it's kind of dim at times, especially in a like bright city environment. But here's the planet Uranus. Uranus is associated with like shakeups and change and just all of a sudden like chaos and reorganizations of things. So we have Uranus right here, basically in line with the Pleiades, in between the 2 Taurid streams. And I would think that perhaps because of this alignment, which isn't going to occur for another 84 years, that we could see this Taurid meteor stream impact be a bit more than people are expecting. Because, you know, we have pretty good science as to the resonances that exist within the solar system and everything, but we don't have everything figured out. And when you have the planet of disruption and change and these sort of impacts, it's very archetypally resonant with this, aligning up exactly with this Taurid meteor stream impact that's starting to come in right now. Well, I would say that's more likely to be a bigger event than not. So you're gonna have to compete with the light of the full supermoon if you try to catch these things on the 5th and 6th and going through like the 9th of November, though will start to be decreasing in light by then. And you also perhaps will have some aurora to compete against in terms of the light. But I expect there to be quite a lot of fireballs flying through the sky as a result of this. And if we get some big geomagnetic storming over the next few days, week, 2 weeks, that could also cause a lot of satellite failures because of increased drag and maybe some malfunctions due to deep dielectric charging, they short circuit, etc. And so those could also be flying in at the same time as our satellite cloud gets bigger and bigger and bigger around the Earth. Expect more things like that. We just have right now so much happening in our little spot in the universe. It's not to be underestimated. And here we have our 193 angstrom view of the sun, which allows us to see the solar corona quite well. This is the outer atmosphere of the sun, and where there are gaps in that atmosphere, this imagery shows up dark. So effectively, there's not that much plasma in this part of the solar corona because the magnetic field is streaming out of that section deep into space. Whereas as you see right here with all these loops and everything, the magnetic field connects back in at the surface and deeper. So this is called a coronal hole and emits a high-speed stream of solar wind. The solar wind density as a result is quite a bit lower. The velocity can go up to 600, 700, 800 kilometers per second. We just got hit by a high-speed stream where the solar wind velocity went quite high. The density did not get as low as it has before with some of these coronal hole high-speed stream impacts. It just kind of hovered near 1 particle per cubic centimeter for a while, then bounced back up to 2. That's kind of where we are right now. I'm really looking at a particle density of below 1 to issue an earthquake watch as it relates to high magnitude earthquakes. That other one, which I don't think we can just see the end of it right there, that was clearly in the southern hemisphere. This one's transequatorial, and in fact, this coronal hole high-speed stream is perfectly synchronized to a sequence of high magnitude earthquakes that we've had going back to July. So let's check out our 2025 earthquake data. Here we have our global seismic activity data as provided by Volcano Discovery for 2025, as you can see right here. And this is going back to July. And we see this resonant pattern. This is our big 8.8 megaquake and other powerful earthquakes that were clustered there at the end of July. And then we have this 7.5 right here. We get this double cluster here, 7.4 and also 7.8 right here. And then we get this earthquake there that's also quite strong. That's a 7.7. And well, look at this frequency. So you go right there, right there, right there, right there. It's about 28 days in between them. And each time that we've had these earthquakes, that coronal hole that I just showed you was on the western limb of the sun and just slightly behind. And we were very clearly in that low density solar wind regime. And so we are right now about to enter back into that, and that would match roughly this frequency there, which is about a month. So every single month, if this coronal hole keeps existing, we're going to be having that impact. And the fact that it is trans-equatorial means that that high-speed stream is guaranteed to hit Earth. Whereas if the coronal hole's in the northern hemisphere or very clearly in the southern hemisphere, it can kind of bypass the Earth to the north or to the south. But that trans-equatorial coronal hole with a negative polarity, meaning it connects very nicely to Earth's magnetic field, seems to have been inducing very strong high magnitude earthquake activity. And we can see that we are now kind of resuming back up because we've had this magnitude 6.3 and 6.1 earthquake today, Afghanistan and Kamchatka respectively. Let's check it out. Here we have our global latest earthquakes map as provided by the USGS. We see that we just had a magnitude 5.5 hit Chile right here. So that is a pretty big earthquake, but it's not the top of the list for the past 24 hours. We see, in fact, it was this magnitude 6.3 right here, which was an orange pager according to the USGS, meaning that it caused quite a bit of damage and perhaps also some loss of life. We do see some population centers right nearby. 6.3 is a big earthquake. Anyone that's been in an earthquake over magnitude 6 knows this. Even like a magnitude 5 is certainly a jolt and a wake-up call for anyone that's experienced that. So a big 6.3 earthquake for Afghanistan. This is back at 2026 Universal Time yesterday on the 2nd. And then today we've had this magnitude 6.1 here, Kamchatka, and you see all the other earthquakes that have occurred since then. So check this out. There's been a magnitude 5.8, 5.1, 5.0, a bunch of 4s. And this area in general is where we've been having the most seismic energy release for 2025. It's been a tremendously huge amount of energy being released here. And in fact, that is propagating out across most of Eurasia and also a lot of North America. It's fairly equidistant to the two, as you can see. So there's been a lot of seismic energy rippling out from this zone, and this entire area has been feeling it. Some parts of this zone here are an earthquake shadow, meaning that's relieving stress. So the area is immediately adjacent to the epicenter of these big earthquakes, that magnitude 8.8 earthquake, the multiple mag 7s that have occurred, all the 6s, etc., they're less likely to shake and rupture and break going forward now for a while. But the other areas that are outside the earthquake shadow are being loaded with a lot of energy. So that would include Japan, that would include the Aleutian Island chain here, Alaska. Perhaps you can even extend that out to the west coast of the United States. Pretty far away, but that energy is going all the way across. Let's check it out. And here we have that wave visualization provided by Iris. A link to this in the video description. We see the epicenter here. We see the seismic waves start to propagate down, first through Alaska, then Canada, and into the United States. Red is motion up, blue is motion down. So the ground is literally going like this. And anyone that's been in a really big earthquake will often tell you, if they're outside, that they see the ground actually rippling. The moment you put a bunch of energy and vibration into the solid earth, it starts to behave differently. It's more ductile. It's not the solid earth that we're used to. And so we didn't, of course, see these waves rolling through North America after this earthquake. It's a 6.1, but we still have that energy being loaded into this entire continent here. Of course, also Eurasia. Our wave visualization is for North America because this is the group that's creating these. So energy coming into North America as a result of that. We have the full supermoon coming up on the 5th, which means that we have a stronger gravitational influence from the moon. As a result, the tides will be stronger, not only ocean tides, but also earth tides. The vertical displacement of the earth from the moon will be at its greatest in time because of the moon being so close to our planet. Let's look at the astrological chart. And here we have our true sky astronomical chart. So this shows us the relative alignments and geometry of the planets as it actually is happening in the sky with accurate constellation sizes and more. So we see our sun here is just about to leave the constellation of Virgo. We see Venus is still in Virgo. 3i Atlas actually around today, tomorrow the 5th, will be conjunct Venus as viewed from Earth. So that's a very interesting energetic influence that you can explore more if you want. Very interstellar. Venus had all those coronal mass ejections hit her, so she's been super energized over the past 2 weeks or so. We also have this Mars-Mercury conjunction right here. And we see our moon down there sweeping across all these planets. So we have Saturn, we have Neptune, we have the dwarf planet Ceres, we have the Centaur Chiron there, and here we have Uranus. So if I go forward in time, we will see our moon move into that opposition with the sun right about here. This is the 5th, 6th of November, so that is our opposition. And then if we go forward, we see that it conjuncts Uranus. And then if you go all the way to the 20th of November, we will see that we have this perfect alignment of the moon, the earth, the sun, Mercury, and Uranus, because Mercury starts to station retrograde and then performs a cazimi, an inferior conjunction cazimi on the 20th. So check out this alignment right here. We have the moon sweeping in, we have Mercury coming in from the other angle, moving retrograde, and Uranus is exactly opposite this. So really wild connections here in time that you don't see every day. This is pretty rare. One of the most dynamic lunar cycles of perhaps the year, past few years and more. So here we see our new moon. This is the 20th, and we got this pretty close to actually exactly 15 degrees, 18 arc minutes. And look here at Uranus, pretty closely in opposition to that. Mercury there also at 15 degrees. So big cluster there, opposite the planet of disruption and change. Uranus, that's November 20th, but we have this full moon coming up first. The moon will be in Earth's magnetotail, interacting with the plasmasphere, pushing more light from the sun into the earth. And right now the sun is pumping out more light because of all these explosions. So we have more radio frequency emissions from the sun. We have more extreme ultraviolet light, more X-ray light. So all this culminating in a big energy wave. And we're really just at the beginning of this, I feel like. So this is something to make sure that you are prepared for. Make sure you go outside, do some earthing and grounding if you can, breath work, some light exercise, move your body, but also take time to rest, relax, eat good food, stay away from the sugar, drink good, clean spring water. these are my recommendations to you. I will be back with more information as needed. I think we're going to have some big X-class flares in the next few days, so we'll have to wait and see. And I also think we're going to have some big earthquakes coming up this month. So I'm your guy, your Cosmic Bro, Stefan Burns. Thank you all so much for watching. Wishing each and every single one of you well. Please take care of yourselves. I'll see you all in the next video.